Hello everyone, happy Friday. My name is Farhud. I'm came from Academy, Farhud Studio or Pasag Academy, whatever. Um, I'm glad to be to you with explain about for the new features about web development applications in regards to other marketing courses. By the way, we're gonna focus on the today about the Windows API. What is a Windows API and what's exactly a Windows API, right? And this is most important for the web developer to communicate with each other between different API. As mentioned earlier, we said API is application programming interface. Application programming interface is the communication pathway between the two different component or whatever's. As you can see for these structures, in the software development or software engineering platforms, this communication pathway between the hardware and softwares is a different layers, right? There, for instance, the guys has user modes or whatever, the sockets between the Win32 or OS whatever's, and the layer is called hardware abstraction layers or kernel modes driver based on for kernel drive or CLI command line. And executive orders or executive layers include the object managers or executive services, include all the web services as mentioned before, and also other subsystem or subcomponents such as environmental or environment subsystem or integral subsystems. Okay, what's exactly Windows API for the .NET developers? The Windows API that allows a computer program to access the features of the Microsoft Windows operating system in which the program is running. For instance, whenever the program is running, such as Windows or other OS, the other components, as mentioned, the layers or different layers is running, right? And then the program can access API functionality via the different technology or corewares, such as system file accesses, right? Each major version of the Windows API has a distinct name that identifies the compatibility aspect of the version. For instance, Win32, what is that? The Windows 3.2, the versions of Windows 64-bit system that allows the Windows API and collect all the refer version of the Windows. The previous version. For instance, if you run the Git versions, control system such as GitHub, you can monitor all the version or subversion of the Windows or on the features on the Windows you development. As mentioned before, the software development kit such as Microsoft Windows SDK is a collection of software development tools in the package. The whole things together, so putting together as a package. This is called the system framework, software framework, or the system framework, right? And then the SDK, such as Java SDK or .NET Framework SDK or iOS SDK, has a different setup to including the features, all the features together, right? In terms of the API, the SDK has embedded systems, and the embedded system connected to different tools, and the different tools connected to different utilities. This is the whole structures together. For instance, Android mobile app developers knows about for the SDK, specific SDK, or iOS developer tools as well. Okay. And then the API utilizes the SDK to communicate with each others and then running as a Microsoft Windows SDK as a services. As I mentioned before, the services, the best services is called file system, devices, process, threads, error handling, all the things. We know about that because that's most important to the web developers, by the way. For instance, when I was to run the kernel.x, the kernel.x is the CMI, command line interface, right? The CLI. And the CLI is running as a 16-bit Windows, right? and then communicated to the advanced services. Or whenever it's to run the GDI, graphics or graphics device interface, is a component provides the features to output graphics content to the monitors, printers, output devices, and so on. Or other user interface such as button, scroll down, or text box, checkbox, whatever, combo box is connected to GUI, graphical user interface, and then connected to the same thing, user.x or user3do.dll. We know about the DLL, right? The DLL is a specific files for the what? Yes, for the GUI or graphical user interface or other user interface. And also, we know about the Windows shell before, Windows PowerShell for the network administrators or system administrator is operating system shells. That's the other example of the API system based on the Windows, right? Or other network services such as NetBIOS, Windows SOC, NetDDD, remote procedure call, same thing. Or web services such as IE, Internet Explorers, or Google Chrome API has a different tools, or the plugins is connected to the API as well. In general, program interaction included the C languages, C# or C++, is connected to the Windows based on the C syntax. Syntax of the what? Syntax of the programming languages, right? For instance, when I was to the name calling or calling the callback, the function call, this is a whole thing together. The whole API data structure together. As object-oriented programming or P languages, we know about for the connection between the Microsoft Foundation classes, Visual Component libraries, GUI, Windows, different layers, doesn't matter, the C++ or C# and WinRT. And then other technologies in related to the MFC, ATL, WTL, .NET runtime, and object knitting and embedded OLE, and .NET frameworks, and COM, component object models, right? And also we know about for compatibility between the different version of the API. The API has a different version, and we know about for the different API has a different version, and then connected to the each others. Other implementation, for instance, as you can see, the different layers, Linux Kernel API, React OS, HT, docs, extenders, and whatever else we know about that. This is other such compile supports. We know about the compiler, right? Each programming language has a different component for the compilers. For instance, when I was running as a Visual Studio has a specific compiler support. And you can see as when I was to Visual Studio.NET that is running, you can watch the compiling interface. The compiling interface is integrated to the other interface, and the whole thing together as a software package. As also you can see the Microsoft Platform SDK, Visual Studio interface description, whatever, and also the same thing, right? For instance, that's all languages Pascal. Remember that the Pascal has an own setup for the free software SDK or whatever. And the big practice for you can watch for the other videos in related to OS2 or a Linux Kernel API, and also the other Windows library files, C++, WinRT, and whatever's. And then this is a good references. Now the link Windows API index is most important. We know about that. The Windows API index This is published by the .NET, by the Microsoft, is updated all the indexes. For instance, the user interface. The user interface has a high DPI, desktop Windows Manager, DWM, NLS, natural language support, and also different GUI, button, combo box, cursor, dialog box, icons, list box, list view controllers, menus, program bars, property sheets. That's the new one. Or common controllers. Rich edit control as well. That's a new one. Scroll bars, strings, toolbars, tooltips, track bars, tree view controllers. This is most important. We know about that. The tree view controllers is included a different one. For instance, the tree view macro, same as the macros on the Excel or Access, right? That's a different setup, as you can see. For instance, tree view edit labels. That's a label text for the text box, right? Tree view edit controllers for each component between the child and the parent as object-oriented programming structures. Or so on and so forth. For instance, tree view get tooltips for the tooltips. Tree view get selection for each selection. Tree view get scroll time for time scrolling on a different environment. And a whole thing together is this is most important reference for the API. We know about that. And the other things, that's for the shell, Windows environment shell, user input and messaging. We know about that. Touch screen, data access and storage. This is most important for the data scientist. Data backups, data exchange, and data links. And diagnostic. The diagnostic API enable you to troubleshoot application or system problem or monitor interface program performance, and you can watch the monitor performance on the API. And also graphics and multimedia, same thing. DirectX, that's most famous, right? Or OpenGL, that's most famous. And Windows imaging component, WIC, is most famous. And also the connected to different devices. Based on different devices access, you can watch, for instance, printing API. The printing API has a different setup, like printer spoolers, print document package, print the schema specification, and print ticket, right? And also the sensors, the same thing. And also the system services. The system services is most based on a COM plus. For instance, you program the specific software to connect the scanners. The scanner connected, we know about that for different COM or COM port. And the API COM port, we know about for what? The port setups for incoming and outgoing message or send and receive protocol based on for different APIs. And also different services, Windows desktop sharings, Windows setup, system information, and whatever. And also the new one, that's most excitement, the new one, cryptography or cryptocurrency, next generation GNC. That's most famous. I mean, the current famous, recent famous, not the whole things, but that's beautiful. The Windows biometric framework, that's the whole things framework. That's a new one. I mean, that's a huge. And also system admin management based on the group policy. The system administrator, as each system administrator knows about that. NetShell, same thing. Software licenses, same thing, and what else? So on and so forth. You can watch. You can review all the together. Depend on your role. Software developers, web application developers, network administrators, systems administrators. Depends. It depends, and depends your role and your position. You can view and the review all the things together, and depends. Okay, and other things to summarize today. The field probably on the next program, we're going to talk about for a specific API for next time. For instance, This one, all the Windows API and frameworks. Look at that. Direct 2D, Direct 3D, D2D or D3D. That's most important. Imaging mastering API and other things. LSP and other things, depends on Windows setup. And Microsoft Windows component and other things. Booting process and other things, and calculators and other things. This is whole things together, as you can watch it. And also multimedia class scheduler and other things. That's most important. You can watch it. And VB script, the active scripting depends on the VB script and JS script for all the things together. And the other one is a list of all the toolkits. All right. For instance, GDK or GDK, that's most important. That's a different one. OpenTK as well. Object Pascal, that's an old one. And also as I said before, CLI. That depends on CLI. That's this one is most important. I mean, the most famous Silverlight, but is almost dead because the Silverlight is a communicator for the Skype, and Skype is almost dead. So that's the whole thing together. PHP, remember, for the PHP programming languages, that's a different one. And Python, that's a different one. Ruby has a different one. TCL, XML, Shell has a different one. Java, that's whole thing together, that's a different one. The Swan. And the last one is GUI builders. For instance, Qt creators, based on JavaScript, C++, Python, or other integration. And open sources. Morphic, Tel, and XBasic, right? And JD developers or webmakers, NetBeans, and whatever, XGS, RAD, PHP, and strings. WX former builders, WX gliders, CodeLight, and whatever else you can, watch it. Okay, thank you everybody to watch today about for Windows API, and we're going to talk about on the next program about for specific APIs for the .NET application programming. We're going to review the most famous and most recent project. For instance, it's up to you. You can communicate to me. If you have any question, please let me know. You can send a message to me by the YouTube or by the Telegram, whatever. And then we're going to touch base on the next time. Thank you everybody to watch, and have a great day. Take care.